Is July the new January? BundleGate bundles on and winding back the clock. Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by Brute Force Research and brought to you by No Disc, helping music technology and finance companies navigate the music industry, and partnered with Digital Music News. It's July 13th, 2026. I'm Lars Murray. It's Monday, where we talk about what happened over the weekend and what is on deck for this week. Over the weekend, well, is July the new January? Back in the days of yore, 10 or 15 years ago, either a blip or an eternity in one's lifetime, January used to be one of the most fun months of the year, when majors and indies alike would start to roll out their developing and priority indie rock acts in order to set them up for South by Southwest and Coachella, and to get a good full semester of college marketing in before the kids left for the summer. Well, no one plans around South by Southwest anymore, and we don't have foot traffic at brick and mortar stores in college towns to worry about. So, why not, if you are Jack White or Cage the Elephant or Suki Waterhouse or Finn Wolfhard, drop an album or a single in July. Or if you are Wet Leg, drop the deluxe version of your album on the anniversary of its first release. Why not July? July is the new January, and I'm there for it. It's not the most action-packed week of the year, though. In fact, everything is still slowing down. I hope you took some time to enjoy those summer Fridays. If you don't take them, you're never getting them back. Nonetheless, as slow as things are, it's a good time to look at a few structural developments in the business. Over at Music Business Worldwide, they're reporting that iHeart has settled a lawsuit with the FCC, which was accusing it of Showola, that is, trading airplay for appearances at iHeart events. On the face of it, Showola is kind of unfair and a bummer. After all, it favors bigger stars and theoretically cuts out the small guys. Looking at it another way, the big artists kind of don't like it either, because they and their label have to subsidize an appearance that iHeart is not paying them for. And on the iHeart side, if they don't have any leverage to get a Beiber or a Billie Eilish to play their show, that show probably isn't going to go on, and the undercard of developing artists won't have a platform anyway. The other salient factor here is that iHeart really is the last major promotional outlet subject to FCC rules, unlike YouTube, Spotify, SiriusXM, and every other digital platform in the world. Did the FCC just take the bat out of iHeart's hands? Sort of. The bottom line is that trading show appearances for exposure is hardwired into the entire music industry, and if radio play cannot be explicitly tied to show appearances, I'm sure iHeart and the majors, because it is mostly the majors operating in this sphere, will find clever ways around any new restrictions. Count on it. Over at Digital Music News, Ashley King took a swack at unbundling, bad choice of words, unraveling why Spotify, despite its 9 and 10-figure investments in podcasting, still isn't keeping up with YouTube on that front. Currently, YouTube commands about 29% of the podcast market, while Spotify has 28%, which wouldn't be so bad for Spotify if they hadn't invested so much in content at such inflated values over the years. YouTube, on its part, gets to skate free of all of those content investments by providing the platform and not any of the production money. It's a good model if you're YouTube, though neither platform is particularly great for the long tail of podcasters, and I say this from experience. YouTube also provides a lot more potential exposure for minnows like Unlimited Supply, but why are we talking about podcasting? This is a music business podcast. Well, because there's another little benefit that Spotify gets from podcasting. If you listen to this pod for a while, you'll know where I'm going with this. It's BundleGate, the term we use for the way Spotify uses podcasts as a way to offset their publishing costs. BundleGate is nothing new. We coined the term in 2024. The music publishers have been trying to fix it ever since, and the most recent NMPA report claims that $500 million last year was lost to publishers due to Spotify's BundleGate. But wait, there's more. Over in Billboard, Ed Christman did a deep dive that unravels, I guess it's okay to say unbundles, the various effects of BundleGate. It's not just that 500 million top line, but actually it's how bundling combined with the introduction of music video has managed to reset the ratio of mechanical licensing to performance licensing fees that it pays to publishers. Now it's paying more in performance than in mechanicals percentage-wise, and while that's not inherently a bad thing, because sometimes performance can be more lucrative and sometimes mechanicals can be more lucrative, it depends on the song and the situation. The one disadvantage here for songwriters is that performance royalties get paid through societies who take a big cut, whereas mechanicals go through the MLC, which is a straight pass-through. It's important to point out that overall payments with the advent of videos and their attendant performing rights are still growing from Spotify. It's just that they aren't growing as fast as they might be without that convenient BundleGate clause allowing Spotify to chop their mechanical payments down. So, getting back to podcasting, no matter how much Spotify is losing on podcasting, you're going to have to factor in that half a queener. That's right, $500 million that it saved them in mechanicals since it was implemented, and that's not chump change. Last week, we talked about my old boss, Jermaine Dupri's lawsuit against Sony Music, alleging that they had underpaid him on back royalties to the tune of $18 million. Well, another back royalty suit got settled last week, and it provides a little bit of potential context to JD's action. Lit. Remember Lit? Here's a hint. 1999, RCA. I'm not going to call them a one-hit wonder for fear of inflaming the legions of Lit fans worldwide who would harass and dox me for calling them that. Lit last week beat Sony on a claim that Sony had been applying its unit sales royalty rate of 14% to its streaming revenues rather than the more appropriate 50-50 license rate that Lit claimed it was entitled to, considering that it had signed a deal in the 90s before streaming even existed, and thus streaming was not covered by a sales calculation, but by a licensing calculation. That's 50-50. By the looks of it, and having worked at Sony, I surmise that when the time came to put Lit up on streaming, Sony defaulted to the lower rate, figuring that something like this might eventually happen. But, well, why pay that extra 35 points up front? Maybe the band won't notice. And based on Sony's initial reaction to the lawsuit, which Lit characterized as, quote, half-hearted, unquote, and by the settlement, it appears that Sony said, oops, my bad, and will make Lit, if not whole, at least mostly whole. And I assume this is one of the things, getting back to Jermaine Dupri, that's driving his suit. My advice to artists who came up before streaming agreements were made standard in contracts is to take a good hard look at their streaming payouts. There's probably a lot more 35-point swings out there to be had, not just at Sony, but at all of the majors. Happy hunting, artists. Looking at the week ahead, well, again, as I've said, it's a slow couple of weeks for industry events other than festivals. So instead of looking at the week ahead, let's look at the week behind. The week a year behind. Let's wind back the clock to mid-July 2025, when I was learning to breathe again after breaking 6 ribs in my biking accident, when I was consoling myself to the tune of Wet Leg's brand new Moisturizer, which turned into my most listened album of the past 12 months. And let's rewind to Justin Bieber's #1 debut with Swag, which Hits Daily Double boldly pronounced was already a Grammy contender. And there it stayed, a contender. In case you weren't keeping score on Grammy night, Justin got shut out completely. Imagine hits missing on that prediction. I kept the receipts, and there's a link in the show notes. Alrighty, let's get to the birthdays. A few music folks celebrating birthdays this week include my old Columbia compadres Lisa Wolf at Range Media Partners and Liberty Lucken over at Rock Nation. Also, Marisol Segal making the products over at Station Head, Myles Grosovsky helping keep the prime in Q Prime, elite deal closer Andrew Stess, elite singer-songwriter JP Olsen, and elite music AI diplomat Paul Sinclair. Happy birthday, everyone. Support for Unlimited Supply is provided by you, our listeners. If you want to join the few, the proud, the elite supporters of Unlimited Supply and receive your Unlimited Supply trucker hat as a symbol of your sophistication, there's a link in the show notes and on our website. If you like what you hear, please hit that follow button wherever you get your pods. I live for your praise and encouragement, but it really helps if you share that praise as a rating and or a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify, and tell a friend or 3. And now we're on Substack, which is probably the best way to follow us and help us out. Links are in the show notes, but you can also visit unlimitedsupplypod.com to sign up for our newsletter, to tell us what you think about the show, to suggest feature ideas, to feed us info, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. I'm Lars Murray, and remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest.